Admiral Chen Li stood on the bridge of the UES Meridian, watching the stars through the wide viewing screen. Her ship was small compared to the massive vessels she had seen in old war movies, but it served its purpose well. The Meridian was built for exploration, not fighting. Its halls buzzed with scientists and researchers who spent their days studying distant worlds and strange phenomena. Chen had been in space for most of her adult life. She started as a young engineer on cargo ships, then worked her way up through the ranks of the Human Exploratory Service. Now, at 52, she commanded a fleet of 12 ships at the edge of known space. It was not a glamorous job, but it was important work. The Kepler 442 system had been their home for 6 months. Her fleet mapped star patterns, studied asteroid fields, and collected data on cosmic radiation. Most days were quiet and routine. The scientists did their work, while the small crew of engineers and technicians kept the ships running smoothly. Dr. Sarah Okafor worked on the science vessel Darwin, studying alien microbes they had found on a distant moon. Lieutenant Commander James Park ran security for the fleet, though there was little to secure against in empty space. Chief Engineer Maria Santos made sure all 12 ships stayed in working order, despite being so far from any repair station. Chen liked her people. They were smart, dedicated, and surprisingly calm under pressure. Most of them had volunteered for deep space duty because they wanted to see what was out there beyond Earth's solar system. They were explorers at heart, not soldiers. On this particular morning, Chen was reviewing survey reports when her communications officer called out from across the bridge. "Admiral, we're getting some strange readings on long-range sensors," said Ensign Torres. "Something big is coming out of hyperspace, about 2 million kilometers away." Chen walked over to the sensor station. The readings showed massive energy signatures approaching their position. Whatever was coming was much larger than anything in her fleet. "How big?" Chen asked. Torres checked her instruments twice before answering. "Very big, Admiral, and there are a lot of them." Within minutes, space itself seemed to tear open as ships began emerging from hyperspace. Chen watched in fascination as alien vessels appeared one after another. They were unlike anything humans had ever seen. Long and curved, with strange markings along their hulls. Some were the size of city blocks, others even larger. The alien ships kept coming. 10, 20, 50, 100. By the time they finished arriving, Chen counted nearly 300 vessels arranged in a perfect battle formation. "Open a channel," Chen ordered. "Let's see who our visitors are." The main screen flickered as an alien face appeared. The creature had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its head, with gray-green skin and what looked like gills along its neck. When it spoke, the universal translator converted its words into clear English. "Primitive mammals," the alien said with obvious amusement. "I am Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian hegemony. You trespass in our space with your pathetic vessels. They are an insult to proper starship design." Chen kept her expression neutral. "I'm Admiral Chen Li of the Human Exploratory Fleet. We're conducting peaceful scientific research in this system. We weren't aware this region was claimed territory." The alien's 4 eyes seemed to focus on her with interest. "Humans," it said slowly. "Yes. We have heard rumors of your species. Small, weak creatures who barely understand space travel. Your ships prove this." More alien faces appeared on the screen as other commanders joined the conversation. They were all laughing at something Chen could not see. The sound was harsh and unpleasant, like metal scraping against stone. "Look at their tiny ships," one of them said. "My fighter craft are larger than their largest vessel." "How do they even survive in space?" asked another. "Their hulls look like they would break apart in a strong solar wind." Admiral Vextar raised one clawed hand for silence. "Tell me, Admiral Chen Li, do your people understand what happens when a superior species encounters an inferior one?" Chen had been in difficult situations before. She had negotiated with hostile governments, survived equipment failures in deep space, and managed crises that would have broken lesser commanders. She drew on that experience now. "In my experience," she said calmly, Superior species usually try to learn from each other, rather than make assumptions based on appearances. The aliens found this hilarious. Their laughter echoed through the communication system for nearly a full minute. Learn from you? Vextar said when he could speak again. What could a species that builds toy spaceships possibly teach the hegemony? Chen noticed that her tactical officer, Lieutenant Reynolds, was quietly working at his station. His hands moved across the controls, in patterns she recognized. He was sending coded messages to the other ships in the fleet, using hand signals that would not show up on alien sensors. We study the universe, Chen answered. We try to understand how things work. Sometimes the smallest details can teach us the most important lessons. The universe belongs to the strong, Vextar declared. Your species will learn this truth very soon. You have one choice, humans. Surrender your vessels and submit to hegemony authority, or be destroyed where you float. And if we choose neither option? Chen asked. The alien admiral's 4 eyes all focused on her at once. There is no third option for inferior species. You will surrender, or you will die. Those are the only choices the universe offers to creatures like you. Chen looked around her bridge. Her officers continued their work with steady hands and calm faces. They had heard every word of the conversation, but none of them showed any sign of panic. These people had volunteered to travel farther from Earth than any human had gone before. They would not break easily. I'll need some time to consider your offer, Chen said. You have 1 hour, Vextar replied. Use it to prepare for surrender. Your weapons cannot harm our shields, and your ships cannot outrun our hunters. Accept your fate with dignity. The communication ended, leaving Chen and her crew alone on the bridge. Outside the viewing screen, the massive alien fleet hung in space like a dark cloud blocking out the stars. Orders, Admiral? Asked her executive officer. Chen smiled slightly. Begin standard defensive preparations. And send a message to all ships. It's time to let our friends back home know we've made contact with the neighbors. The Zephyrian fleet moved into attack formation with the precision of a well-trained military force. Their ships were massive and intimidating, each one bristling with weapon systems that glowed with barely contained energy. Admiral Vextar clearly wanted the humans to see exactly how outmatched they were. Chen watched from the bridge of the Meridian as alien vessels took positions around her small fleet. The largest Zephyrian ship was easily 10 times the size of her flagship. Its hull was covered in armor plating that looked thick enough to stop anything her weapons could fire at it. They're showing off, observed Lieutenant Commander Park, the fleet security chief. He had transferred to the Meridian from Chen's previous command and knew how to read tactical situations. Yes, they are, Chen agreed. The question is whether they're showing off for us or for themselves. The alien communication system crackled to life again. This time, instead of addressing the humans directly, the Zephyrians were talking among themselves on open channels. They clearly wanted the humans to hear every word. Look how they huddle together like frightened animals, said one alien commander. 12 tiny ships trying to hide behind each other. When? 200 to the prosit. I've seen cargo pods with better armor than those hulls, replied another. How do they expect to fight with toys like that? Admiral Vextar's voice cut through the chatter. Perhaps we should demonstrate proper ship design for these primitives. Commander Zelk, bring your dreadnought alongside their largest vessel. One of the massive alien ships began moving toward the Meridian. As it approached, Chen could see just how enormous it really was. The alien dreadnought was over 2 kilometers long, with weapon batteries that could probably destroy her entire fleet with a single coordinated attack. The ship moved slowly, deliberately, making sure the humans had time to appreciate its size and power. It settled into a position just 500 meters from the Meridian, close enough that Chen could see details on its hull through the viewing screen. Impressive, she said quietly. Lieutenant Reynolds, are you getting detailed scans? Her tactical officer nodded without looking up from his instruments. Every system they're willing to show us, Admiral. Their shields are definitely powerful. But the energy patterns are interesting, Chen understood. Reynolds was one of the best tactical analysts in the human fleet. If he found their technology Interesting. It meant he was already figuring out how it worked. The alien commentary continued. See how their weapon systems shake when they try to target us? Laughed one commander. Their targeting computers can barely track something as large as a proper warship. Their shields flicker like candle flames in a storm, added another. One hit from our main guns would turn their flagship into space dust. Chen had to admit the aliens were not entirely wrong. Her ships were designed for exploration and scientific research, not military combat. Their weapons were defensive systems meant to deal with pirates or asteroids, not a full military fleet. Their shields were built for radiation protection and debris, not energy weapons. But the aliens were making assumptions based on what they could see. They looked at the human ships and saw weakness because they did not understand what they were really looking at. Admiral, called Ensign Torres, from the communications station. The aliens are intercepting our internal communications. They're listening to everything we say between ships. Let them listen, Chen replied. Make sure all ships know we're operating under Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was a standard exploration procedure that looked like normal fleet coordination, but actually involved coded communications hidden within routine technical discussions. The aliens would hear conversations about power distribution, shield harmonics, and navigation updates. They would not realize that these routine reports contained detailed intelligence about Zephyrian fleet positions, weapon capabilities, and tactical weaknesses. Dr. Okafor's voice came through the communication system from the Darwin. Admiral, we're having some issues with our main computer core. The alien sensor sweeps seem to be causing interference with our research data. Understood, Doctor. Chen replied. Try rerouting through the secondary systems. If that doesn't work, we can send a repair team over. To alien ears, this sounded like a conversation about technical problems on an old research ship. In reality, Dr. Okafor was reporting that her team had successfully analyzed the alien sensor systems and identified potential blind spots in their scanning patterns. The Zephyrian mockery continued throughout the hour. Their commanders took turns describing how easily they could destroy the human fleet, often in graphic detail. They talked about human ships breaking apart under weapons fire, human crews dying in the cold vacuum of space, and human technology proving worthless against superior alien engineering. Their life support systems are so primitive, one alien observed. They actually use atmospheric recycling instead of quantum air generation. How do they survive long voyages? Look at their propulsion systems, added another. Chemical rockets and basic fusion drives. No wonder they build such small ships. They can't generate enough power for anything larger. Admiral Vextar seemed particularly amused by human defensive tactics. See how they try to coordinate their shields, like children playing with flashlights, thinking the light will protect them from darkness. Chen listened to it all with apparent calm. Her officers continued their work, running diagnostics, checking systems, and maintaining standard operational procedures. To watching aliens, it looked like a crew desperately trying to prepare for a battle they could not win. In reality, her people were gathering intelligence at a rate that would have impressed military analysts back on Earth. Every alien ship movement, every energy signature, every communication protocol was being recorded and analyzed. Chief Engineer Santos reported from the engine room. Admiral, I've managed to boost our shield strength by 12%. It's not much, but it might buy us a few extra seconds if things go bad. The aliens found this hilarious. 12% was nothing against weapons that could punch through military-grade armor. But Chen smiled slightly when she heard the report, because she knew what Santos was really telling her. Time remaining? Chen asked. 37 minutes until the deadline, Lieutenant Reynolds reported. Chen nodded. All ships. Continue standard preparations. And remember, we're explorers, not warriors. Our job is to learn everything we can from this encounter. Outside the viewing screen, the alien fleet waited like a pack of predators watching cornered prey. Their ships were beautiful in their own way, elegant curves, flowing lines, and technology that represented centuries of military development. But Chen had been in space long enough to know that the most dangerous assumptions were the ones that seemed obviously true. The aliens saw primitive humans in tiny ships, completely outmatched and helpless. They were half right. Chen's fleet was outmatched by conventional measures, but helpless was another matter entirely. Contact from the Darwin, Torres reported. Dr. Okafor says her research team has finished their analysis. Thank you, Ensign, Chen replied. Tell the doctor that her timing is perfect, as always. The countdown continued, bringing them closer to Admiral Vextar's deadline. But Chen was no longer worried about time running out. In fact, she was starting to hope the aliens would keep talking a little longer. Every word they said was teaching her people more about how the galaxy really worked. Admiral Vextar's patience was wearing thin. Chen could hear it in his voice when the Zephyrian commander opened communications again with only 20 minutes left on his deadline. Human Admiral, Vextar said, his 4 eyes gleaming with predatory satisfaction. Your time grows short. Have you reached a decision about surrender? We're still discussing our options, Chen replied diplomatically. This is an important decision that affects the lives of everyone in my fleet. There are no options to discuss, the alien snapped. You will surrender your ships and submit to hegemony processing, or you will be destroyed. To help clarify your thinking, I will provide a demonstration. The massive Zephyrian dreadnought that had been positioned near the meridian suddenly moved toward the smallest ship in Chen's fleet. The Darwin hung in space like a delicate butterfly next to the alien warship's bulk. Dr. Sarah Okafor watched from the Darwin's bridge as targeting systems locked onto her ship. She was a xenobiologist, not a military officer, but she had spent years in deep space and understood the situation perfectly. All hands, this is the captain, she announced over the ship's intercom. We are currently being targeted by an alien weapon system. Continue normal operations. Our mission remains unchanged. Her crew of 38 scientists and technicians continued their work with remarkable calm. They had volunteered for the most dangerous exploration mission in human history, traveling farther from Earth than any previous expedition. Being threatened by aliens was frightening, but it was also exactly the kind of discovery they had hoped to make. Target locked, announced a Zephyrian weapons officer on the open channel. One shot from our main cannon will vaporize that pathetic vessel completely. Chen's voice cut through the tension. Admiral Vextar, the Darwin is a scientific research vessel with no military value. Destroying it would serve no tactical purpose. It will serve to demonstrate the consequences of defying the hegemony, Vextar replied coldly. Your people need to understand their place in the galaxy. Chen looked around her bridge. Her officers were still working at their stations, but she could see the strain in their faces. They were good people who had signed up to explore the universe, not to watch their friends die in pointless demonstrations of alien power. Very well, Chen said finally. You've made your point. Dr. Okafor, move the Darwin to a safe distance. Negative. Admiral, came Okafor's calm reply. We're in the middle of analyzing some very interesting microbial samples from the Kepler 442c moon. Moving now would contaminate our work. The aliens seemed puzzled by this response. In their experience, inferior species begged for mercy when faced with superior firepower. They did not calmly discuss scientific research priorities while weapons were pointed at them. Your scientist is either very brave or very stupid, Vextar observed. She's very dedicated, Chen corrected. Dr. Okafor has spent her entire career studying alien life forms. She won't abandon her research just because someone points a gun at her. This exchange seemed to confuse the Zephyrians even more. They understood fear and submission from conquered species. They understood desperate resistance from military forces, but they did not understand humans who treated alien threats as minor interruptions to more important work. Chen used their confusion to her advantage. Admiral Vextar, since you're interested in demonstrations, perhaps you'd like to see how humans prepare for dangerous situations. Proceed, the alien said, apparently curious about human procedures. Chen opened a fleet-wide communication channel. Her image appeared on screens throughout all 12 ships, visible to every member of her crews. People of the human exploratory fleet, she began. We find ourselves in a situation that will test everything we've learned about working together in deep space. We are outnumbered and outgunned by a technologically superior force. The Zephyrians listened with interest, expecting to hear a surrender speech or desperate battle cry. Instead, Chen continued with the calm professionalism that had made her one of the most respected commanders in human space. Our mission has always been to explore, to learn, and to represent humanity with dignity among the stars. That mission has not changed. Dr. Okafor will continue her biological research. Chief Santos will maintain our ships in perfect working order. Lieutenant Reynolds will keep our tactical systems ready for any eventuality. Each name she mentioned carried coded meanings that her people understood, but the aliens did not. Dr. Okafor's biological research included detailed analysis of alien technology. Chief Santos, maintaining ships, involved preparing for scenarios the Zephyrians could not imagine. Lieutenant Reynolds' tactical systems were more sophisticated than they appeared. We are explorers, Chen continued. We go where others fear to travel. We study what others dismiss as impossible. And we make contact with civilizations that others assume are hostile. Today we will do what explorers do best. We will adapt, we will learn, and we will survive. The speech ended with scattered applause from human crews throughout the fleet. To alien ears, it sounded like a touching but futile attempt to boost morale before inevitable defeat. They did not notice the way certain technical phrases in Chen's speech caused specific changes in human ship operations. Power distribution patterns shifted subtly throughout the fleet. Shield harmonics synchronized in ways that looked like desperate energy conservation but actually served other purposes. Navigation systems updated with course corrections that appeared random but followed carefully calculated patterns. Inspiring words, Admiral Vextar said mockingly. But words will not protect you from plasma cannons. You have 10 minutes to surrender, or I will order the destruction of your research vessel as promised. Chen nodded calmly. Understood. 10 minutes. She closed the communication channel and turned to her tactical officer. Mr. Reynolds, how are our preparations progressing? All systems green, Admiral, he reported. The package is ready for delivery on your command. Chief Engineer Santos called from the engine room. Admiral, we've completed the modifications you requested. All ships report ready status. Dr. Okafor's voice came from the Darwin, still hanging in space under Zephyrian guns. Admiral, our analysis is complete. The data has been very enlightening. Chen smiled for the first time since the aliens had arrived. Excellent work, everyone. Dr. Okafor, transmit your findings to the fleet database. I think everyone will find your research very interesting. The Zephyrians continued to monitor human communications, but they heard only routine technical discussions. They did not understand that Dr. Okafor's research findings included complete tactical analysis of alien weapon systems, shield frequencies, and structural weak points. 5 minutes, Vextar announced. Make your choice, humans. Chen looked out at the massive alien fleet surrounding her small ships. 300 warships against 12 exploration vessels. By any reasonable measure, the humans were completely doomed. But Chen had not built her career by accepting other people's definitions of reasonable. Mr. Reynolds, she said quietly, send the signal. Her tactical officer pressed a single control on his console. A brief energy pulse transmitted into deep space, aimed at a point far beyond the Kepler 442 system. To Zephyrian sensors, it looked like a routine navigation beacon. It was not routine at all. Signal sent, Admiral, Reynolds reported. Time to receipt? Chen asked. Approximately 4 minutes, 30 seconds. Chen nodded and opened communications to the Zephyrian fleet. Admiral Vextar, you've been very patient with us. I think it's time we gave you a proper answer. Finally, the alien replied. I was beginning to think your species was incapable of rational decision-making. Oh, we're very rational, Chen said. We're also very thorough. When we encounter something new and potentially dangerous, we make sure to call for backup. Vextar's 4 eyes focused on her with sudden intensity. Backup? What backup could a primitive species possibly? He was interrupted by urgent reports from his own sensor operators. Something was approaching the system at high speed. something that registered energy signatures unlike anything in their databases. "Admiral," one of his officers called out, "we're detecting massive hyperspace distortions inbound to this location. Whatever's coming is very large." Chen smiled. "Admiral Vextar, I'd like you to meet some friends of ours." Space itself seemed to tear apart as something massive forced its way out of hyperspace. The energy discharge was so intense that it overloaded sensors on both human and alien ships. For several seconds, everyone was flying blind, as electromagnetic pulses scattered across the system. Admiral Vextar stared at his sensor displays in growing alarm. The readings made no sense. According to his instruments, something the size of a small moon was emerging from hyperspace, but that was impossible. No known species could build ships that large. "Report," he barked at his sensor operator. "Sir, the readings they're incredible. Whatever is coming out of hyperspace is 15 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide. It's larger than our entire command station back home." Vextar felt a cold sensation in his stomach. The Zephyrian hegemony prided itself on having the most advanced military technology in the galaxy. Their largest dreadnoughts were barely 2.5 kilometers long. Nothing could be bigger than that. The electromagnetic interference cleared, and the main viewing screen showed something that challenged everything Vextar thought he knew about starship construction. The UES Goliath hung in space like a metallic mountain. Its hull stretched from one end of the sensor display to the other, covered in armor plating that looked thick enough to stop anything short of a stellar collision. Weapon systems dotted its surface, not dozens, but hundreds of them, each one larger than the main guns on Zephyrian battleships. The massive vessel's engines glowed with contained power that registered off the scale of alien measuring devices. Its shields flickered into existence with an energy signature so strong that nearby asteroids began vibrating from the gravitational distortions. "Impossible," whispered one of Vextar's commanders. "Nothing that big could actually fly. The structural stress alone would tear it apart." But the Goliath was not alone. As space around it stabilized, more human ships began emerging from hyperspace. These were not exploration vessels like Chen's fleet. They were warships, sleek and deadly, with hulls designed for one purpose: fighting and winning battles. 12 ships became 24, then 36, then 48. Each new arrival was larger and more heavily armed than anything in the Zephyrian fleet. They moved into formation around the massive mothership with precision that spoke of years of training and combat experience. Admiral Vextar realized he was no longer looking at a small human exploration fleet. He was facing a battle group that could probably destroy his entire armada without breaking formation. Chen's voice cut through the stunned silence on the communication channels. "Admiral Vextar, I'd like to formally introduce Admiral Rodriguez of the UES Goliath, flagship of the Human Defense Force Second Fleet." A new voice joined the conversation, calm, professional, and carrying the unmistakable authority of someone who had never lost a battle. "Admiral Vextar, I understand you've been threatening our exploration teams." Admiral Rodriguez appeared on the viewing screen. She was older than Chen, with gray hair and scars that spoke of decades in military service. Her uniform bore ribbons and decorations that meant nothing to the aliens, but her eyes carried the confidence of someone who commanded overwhelming force. This is not possible," Vextar stammered. "Your species is primitive. Your technology is centuries behind ours. How do you have ships like this?" "You made some interesting assumptions about human capabilities," Rodriguez replied mildly. "Based on what?" "Exactly. A few exploration vessels designed for scientific research?" The truth was beginning to dawn on Admiral Vextar. The small, lightly armed ships his fleet had been threatening were never meant to fight. They were scouts, advance teams sent ahead to map new territory while the real military force remained hidden. "You see," Chen added helpfully, "human exploration doctrine is very simple. We go in small groups first to meet new neighbors and establish peaceful contact. But we always make sure the cavalry knows where we are." Fighter craft began launching from the Goliath's massive hangar bays. Not dozens, but hundreds of sleek interceptors that made Zephyrian fighters look like antiques. They formed up in attack squadrons with movements so coordinated they might have been controlled by a single mind. Admiral Rodriguez's tactical officer reported ship status on an open channel, apparently unconcerned that the aliens could hear every word. Admiral, all weapon systems are online and ready. Fighter wings Alpha through Delta are deployed. Shields are at maximum strength. All ships report ready for combat operations. Thank you, Commander. Rodriguez replied. Maintain defensive posture but do not target the alien fleet unless they take hostile action. Vextar looked at his own tactical displays and felt his world tilting beneath him. The Goliath alone outgunned his entire battle group. The escort ships surrounding it represented technology that would revolutionize Zephyrian military doctrine. And the fighters? There were more human fighters in space than he had total ships. This changes nothing, he said, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. The hegemony has claimed this system. Your presence here is illegal under galactic law. Admiral Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. Galactic law? That's interesting. When exactly did the galaxy elect the Zephyrian hegemony as its governing body? The question hung in space like an unexploded bomb. The truth was that galactic law was simply what strong species imposed on weaker ones. The hegemony had been able to do this because they had the biggest ships and the most advanced weapons, until now. Admiral Chen, Rodriguez continued, have your people been interfering with any established territorial claims or threatening alien civilians? No, Admiral, Chen replied formally. We've been conducting peaceful scientific research in an unclaimed system. We've made no territorial demands and threatened no one. We were simply studying local stellar phenomena when the Zephyrian fleet arrived and demanded our surrender. I see. Rodriguez turned her attention back to Vextar. So let me understand this situation. You approached a peaceful scientific mission, threatened to destroy unarmed research vessels, and demanded surrender from people who were minding their own business. Vextar realized that the conversation had taken a very bad turn. When he had 300 ships facing 12 small exploration vessels, his demands had seemed reasonable. Now, facing a human battle fleet that could turn his ships into scrap metal, those same demands sounded like the threats of a bully. The hegemony has interests in this region, he said weakly. So do we, Rodriguez replied. The difference is that we're not threatening anyone over it. Fighter squadrons from the Goliath swept past the Zephyrian fleet in perfect formation. Their flyby was clearly a demonstration, a way of showing just how fast and maneuverable human combat craft could be. The message was unmistakable. If this became a shooting war, Zephyrian ships would never even see their attackers coming. Admiral Vextar faced the most difficult decision of his military career. He could order an attack and watch his entire fleet get destroyed in the name of hegemony pride. Or he could retreat and admit that the galaxy contained powers stronger than his own. His communications officer interrupted his thoughts. Admiral, we're receiving priority transmissions from Hegemony Command. They're ordering us to withdraw immediately and avoid any hostile contact with human forces. Vextar stared at the officer. How do they know about this situation? Sir, the humans have been broadcasting everything on subspace channels. The entire galaxy has been watching this encounter. The implications hit Vextar like a physical blow. Every major species in known space had just witnessed the Zephyrian hegemony backing down from what they thought was a primitive species. The political consequences would be enormous. Admiral Rodriguez seemed to read his thoughts. Don't worry, Admiral. We don't want this to become a shooting war any more than you do. Withdraw your fleet to a safe distance, and we can discuss territorial boundaries through proper diplomatic channels. Chen added her own voice to the suggestion. Admiral Vextar, there's plenty of space in the galaxy for all of us. We'd rather be neighbors than enemies. The massive human fleet waited patiently for his response. Hundreds of ships capable of ending Zephyrian dominance in this part of the galaxy, all holding their fire and waiting for him to make the right choice. Vextar looked around his bridge at officers who had never seen their admiral forced to back down from anyone. He thought about the consequences of retreat versus the consequences of annihilation. All ships, he said finally, Withdraw to minimum safe distance. Maintain defensive posture but do not target human vessels. The Zephyrian fleet began moving away from the human positions, their previous confidence shattered by the appearance of forces they had never imagined could exist. The Zephyrian fleet retreated to a distance of 50,000 kilometers, far enough to avoid immediate destruction but close enough to monitor the situation. Admiral Vextar sat in his command chair, trying to process what had just happened to his carefully planned show of force. 3 hours ago, he had commanded the most powerful military force in this sector of the galaxy. His ships were feared throughout known space, and his reputation as a conqueror was well established. Now he found himself outgunned by a species he had dismissed as primitive. Admiral Rodriguez allowed the aliens time to settle into their new position before opening communications again. When her image appeared on the viewing screen, she looked calm and professional, showing no signs of triumph or aggression. "Admiral Vextar," she said, "I want to clarify something important. The Human Defense Force has no interest in conquest or territorial expansion through military action. We're here because we protect our exploration teams, not because we want to fight your people." Vextar listened carefully. After witnessing the size of the human battle fleet, he was much more interested in what their military commander had to say. "However," Rodriguez continued, "we will not tolerate threats against peaceful human activities in unclaimed space. Our people have the right to explore, to conduct research, and to travel freely without being bullied by anyone." The alien admiral found himself in an impossible position. Protocol demanded that he maintain hegemony authority over the region, but reality demanded that he avoid a battle he could not win. His own tactical computers had already calculated the odds, less than 3% chance of Zephyrian victory, even if they fought perfectly. "What do you propose?" he asked finally. Admiral Chen rejoined the conversation from her position on the meridian. "We propose exactly what we've been doing all along. We study the universe, you go about your business, and everyone tries to get along peacefully. The hegemony has strategic interests in this region," Vextar protested weakly. "So do we," Rodriguez replied. "The difference is that our strategic interest is scientific knowledge, not territorial control. We're not trying to conquer anything. We just want to understand how the galaxy works." Dr. Okafor's voice joined the discussion from the Darwin. "Admiral Vextar, we've discovered 17 new forms of microbial life in this system alone. Some of them might lead to medical breakthroughs that could benefit every species in the galaxy. Isn't that more valuable than an empty territorial claim?" The alien commander struggled with concepts that did not fit into hegemony military doctrine. His people conquered territory to extract resources and project power. They did not travel across space just to look at microbes. You study microbes?" he asked, genuinely confused. "We study everything," Chen explained patiently. "Microbes, star formation, gravitational anomalies, quantum mechanics, alien cultures. Knowledge is valuable for its own sake, not just for military applications." Admiral Rodriguez decided to offer a practical demonstration. "Admiral Vextar, your ships use quantum resonance shielding, correct?" "Yes," the alien replied suspiciously. "How did you know that?" "Because Dr. Okafor's team analyzed your shield frequencies during your threat display. They've discovered a way to improve your shield efficiency by about 20% using a simple harmonic modification." Vextar's tactical officer quickly confirmed this analysis. The humans were correct. Their suggested modification would indeed improve Zephyrian shield technology significantly. "Why would you share this information?" Vextar demanded. "Because knowledge shared freely benefits everyone," Chen said simply. "The more we all know about how the universe works, the better we can all survive and prosper." The concept was revolutionary to Zephyrian thinking. Military technology was closely guarded, shared only with trusted allies, and never with potential enemies. The idea of giving away tactical advantages to strangers violated every principle of hegemony doctrine. Admiral Rodriguez sensed the alien confusion and decided to address it directly. "Admiral Vextar, let me explain something about human military philosophy. We build ships like the Goliath not because we want to fight wars, but because we want to prevent them. I do not understand," Vextar admitted. When everyone knows we can defend ourselves, no one tries to attack us. When everyone knows we prefer peaceful solutions, no one assumes we're looking for trouble. Strong defense plus peaceful intentions equals stable neighbors. The human battle group maintained its positions with relaxed efficiency. Fighter patrols continued their sweeps, but their movements were clearly defensive. Weapon systems remained powered but not targeted. The message was unmistakable. Humans were prepared for war, but preferred peace. Vextar received an urgent communication from his home government. Hegemony intelligence had been monitoring the entire encounter and was extremely concerned about its implications. If humans could build ships like the Goliath, what other surprises might they have waiting in reserve? Admiral, his communications officer reported. Hegemony Command is ordering us to establish formal diplomatic contact with human authorities. They want a complete intelligence assessment on human military capabilities. Rodriguez overheard the report on the open channel. We'd be happy to arrange diplomatic meetings. Admiral Chen, perhaps you could provide contact information for our diplomatic corps? Chen smiled. Of course. We have embassy ships stationed in 12 different sectors. I can provide coordinates and communication protocols. Embassy ships. The implications struck Vextar immediately. Humans were not just exploring this one system. They were operating throughout the galaxy, quietly establishing diplomatic relationships and gathering intelligence. The Zephyrian hegemony had completely underestimated the scope of human activities. How long has your species been active in this region of space? He asked carefully. About 30 years. Chen replied casually. We've made contact with 47 different species so far. Most of them have been quite friendly once we got past the initial misunderstandings. 47 species, 30 years, misunderstandings. Vextar began to realize that this encounter was not unique. Humans had probably faced aggressive alien fleets before, and they had developed standard procedures for dealing with them. Admiral Rodriguez seemed to read his thoughts again. Admiral Vextar, you're not the first military commander to assume humans are weak based on our exploration ships. Most species make that mistake at least once. The smart ones learn from it and move on to more productive relationships. Dr. Okafor added her own perspective from the Darwin. We've found that most aggressive behavior comes from fear of the unknown. Once people get to know each other, they usually find better ways to solve problems than fighting. The alien admiral looked at his tactical displays one more time. The human fleet remained in perfect formation. A demonstration of military precision that would have impressed hegemony instructors. But their weapons were still not targeted at his ships, despite having every tactical advantage. Admiral Rodriguez, he said finally, I believe my government would be very interested in discussing territorial boundaries and mutual defense agreements. Excellent, Rodriguez replied. Peaceful solutions are always preferable to military ones. Admiral Chen, will your research mission continue here? If Admiral Vextar has no objections, Chen said diplomatically. Vextar considered his options. He could maintain territorial claims and risk further confrontation with a species that clearly had superior military technology. Or he could recommend that his government negotiate a boundary agreement that respected both human research interests and hegemony strategic concerns. The hegemony has no objection to scientific research in this region, he said formally. Perhaps we can establish protocols for future contact between our peoples. Admiral Rodriguez nodded approvingly. I'll arrange for diplomatic contact through proper channels. In the meantime, Admiral Chen's team will continue their work here. I assume your fleet will respect their peaceful mission? Of course, Vextar replied, though the words felt strange in his mouth. For the first time in his military career, he was agreeing to respect someone else's territorial claims, not because he chose to, but because he had to. The human battle group began forming up for departure. The massive Goliath turned slowly, its engines building power for the jump to hyperspace. Fighter squadrons returned to their hangar bays with the same precision they had shown during deployment. Admiral Vextar, Rodriguez called before closing communications. It's been interesting meeting you. I hope our peoples can find ways to cooperate in the future. As do I, Admiral Rodriguez, Vextar replied, and was surprised to find that he meant it. One by one, the human warships disappeared into hyperspace, leaving only Chen's small exploration fleet behind. The 12 research vessels looked as vulnerable as they had before, but Vextar would never see them the same way again. He now knew that somewhere in the galaxy, Admiral Rodriguez and her battle group were ready to respond to any threat against human interests. The next species that tried to bully human explorers would face the same overwhelming response his fleet had encountered. As the Zephyrian fleet prepared to depart, Vextar composed his report to Hegemony Command. It would be the most important intelligence assessment of his career, and it would change how his government viewed their place in the galaxy. The report began with a simple statement that would echo through hegemony space for years to come. Human military capability has been severely underestimated. Recommend immediate diplomatic contact and revision of all territorial expansion plans in regions of human activity. Admiral Chen watched the alien fleet jump to hyperspace and return to her work. There were still microbes to study, star formations to map, and mysteries to unravel. The galaxy was full of wonders waiting to be discovered, and humanity would continue exploring them. Protected by friends who preferred peace, but were always ready for war.